Entering the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience. Golf season is back in Hawaii, as you can tell by my very tropical shirt. I just want to live the vibes of Hawaii. Being up in the Northeast, it's not snowy. It's been kind of a nice winter, but every time that I get to just cruise the channel guide and golf is on in January, and it just looks so nice. It reminds me that the nice weather is coming back to us, not soon, but sooner rather than later, which always just fills my heart with a warm glow. Maybe as nice as the warm glow of that Hawaii sun. Smash the like and sub to the channel while you are here. I am doing my walkthrough today with fantasynational.com. If you want to get fantasynational.com, get yourself 20% off at fantasynational.com/Mayo. Link is down in the description, as is the link for the DraftKings Listeners League for the Tournament of Champions. Not the Tournament of Champions, sorry, the Sentry Tournament, because that is what it is called right now. But I do want to tell you about the one and done, the race for the Mayo Cup. It is back. It starts at the Sony Open. I'm giving away 2 free entries into it, $200 a piece. What you need to do, it's super easy. You need to subscribe, rate, and review 5 stars to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can just go into the Spotify comment section for this episode and just leave your name. That works too. But you need to be subscribed. Turn on those auto downloads as well. I got a new contract coming up. We need to boost up those numbers. You can help me out on that front. That's what the ratings and reviews really help out for too. But you do 1 on Apple, 1 on Spotify. You get 2 entries into the draw. We'll be giving that away on the Sony Open Picks and Bet show with Jeff Feinberg in a week's time. I had mentioned I'm doing the major show with predictions with Jeff and making our predictions for the year. That's coming out on Friday, no longer New Year's Day, because me and Jeff are doing our pick show for this tournament on New Year's Day. The other way to get into the draw for a free entry into the race for the Mayo Cup is you go to fantasygolfchampionships.com. Again, link down in the description if that's too much for you to remember. And get yourself an entry or 5 entries. However many entries you can have up to 5. Get yourself 4 entries. Screenshot me one of those entries on Twitter at the PME, and I'll put you in a draw to get another entry for free. But you need to have one already. It's already 37% full. If you don't get it now, you are going to miss out on being in it. And I always hear from people like 2 weeks after it starts, how come I can't get the one and done? It's like, it already started, you moron. So just pay attention and make sure to reserve your spot. And you're never going to miss your picks. If you're worried about missing your picks in the one and done, at fantasygolfchampionships.com, you can put in a text alert, just put in your number, and it will prompt you the night before if you haven't made a pick yet to spend the 10 seconds and go make a pick. Anyway, that's my hard sell for the one and done. The top 10 pays 5 figures this year. Everyone inside the top 10 makes 5 figures, $80,000 to first place, $800,000 of guaranteed money in the pool. It's the best one and done tournament around. It's the least intense fantasy golf game that you can play. It's not like you need to make 800 lineups on DraftKings or try to figure out the betting market. No, you just pick one guy per week, can't use them again after it's done. Super easy, super fun, and it's great to go in as a team. Or I got an entry from my dad. I've talked about that a few times. I've seen that other people do the same thing, that my dad and I split one of the entries, and it gives us a reason to talk every single week for 10 to 15 minutes when normally maybe we wouldn't do that. So, it's $6 per week. Technically, it's $200 up front, but it goes through August, so it's great bang for your buck. It's a great community tournament if that's something that you want to do, and there's a big prize at the very top, and anyone can kind of win because all strategies are kind of valid because it's a very small sample, and you need to hit a ton of winners in order for this to work. But we are here to talk about the Sentry and talk about the course at Kapalua for the 25th time. Well, 25th time in a row we've seen it at Kapalua, and the 25th time overall. It's a plantation course. It's at Hawaii. There's no cut in this event. It's a super easy course, despite being super long at 7,600 yards. It does play as a par 73 on Bermuda grass. There are wild swings in elevation. There is 510 feet from the highest point to the lowest point on this course. For reference, Wailea next week in Hawaii has a 10-foot difference between the highest and lowest points on the course. So keep that in mind, that when people comp it to Augusta. It's not that players who play well at Augusta are necessarily going to play well at Kapalua. Great players play well everywhere, but it is the massive swings in elevation. It's the uneven lies, the undulating greens. These green surfaces, these green complexes are massive. If you play on a site like Underdog or Prize Picks, and they do have pick'ems of over, under, or more or less, so, to keep it fantasy for us, if it's a really low number, not a low number in terms of hitting greens or fairways, the fairways, as my good friend Saul from Snatch will tell you,
you could land a jumbo fucking jet in there,
are just absolutely massive that you're not going to miss a ton of them. Unless the weather can crop up. It doesn't seem like that's going to be the case right now, but this is a tournament where weather can affect you. I mean, it's in Hawaii. It's on the Pacific Ocean. Wind can come out of nowhere. We've seen this shortened over time. Massive monsoons and rain delays, shrinking this to 36 holes or 54 holes. It's infrequent that happens, but it can happen at this course. So weird lies, downhill lies, uphill lies, sideways lies, and some of the holes that say that they're 534 yards as a par 4. Those kind of play downhill, so they don't play that long at all, and some of them play uphill to make them a lot longer than they seem. So you kind of have to, as you can see on the screen right now, that it's something that you want to be a very good driver of the ball. You need to get super hot with your putting, and the greens are so big that everyone kind of hits a ton of greens in regulation. So over fairways, over greens in regulation, if in round 1 of this on Underdog or Prize Picks that they set those numbers artificially low, just keep that in mind. They probably won't, but you never know. You got to catch them with their pants down whenever you can. So keep that in mind going forward with any of this stuff. Let's go over to fantasynational.com right now and check out, these are some of the players that I've seen so far. Again, playing the one and done fantasygolfchampionships.com to take a look at the course breakdown and the course conditions overall. We can take a look at Kapalua. Again, 7,600 yards does not play that long. The hardest holes on the course are 1, 2, and 17. So you can kind of give it away, but then you can make it back up coming down the stretch. As you can see, in terms of how the distribution amongst the top 10 finishers go, approach means more than off the tee, although we've seen players win this without approach being the number one thing. You just really need to be dialed in from beyond 200 yards and within 125 yards. The middle stuff isn't that important, but you need to putt. You need to drive, you need to putt. Those are the two striking things that have always stood out to me over the course of time in this tournament, year over year, where those are the two big things that really point to the very top of the leaderboard. Dominating on the par 5s, you got to do it. As you can see here, the whole composition. And when we get to my modeling and how I built it out, you'll see that there are 3 holes from 300 to 400 yards. But this is the range that I've weighted because there's another 4 from 400 to 450, but 3 of them play downhill, so they actually kind of fall more in the bucket of the 350 to 400. Like hell, DJ almost had a hole in one on one of these holes that was like 400 yards because it plays either downwind or for a lot of the time, or it just plays downhill in general, that they tend to fall more in the scoring bucket in terms of proximity ranges of the 350 to 400 yard range. So that's why I have that one in particular pointed out there. Driving accuracy, 73% for the field. Greens and regulation, 80% for the field. So again, they're just massive, both the fairways and the greens. So again, keep that in mind for those pick'em sites. Proximity, we kind of scroll back up. I don't know if we have the proximity for this one. Now we don't. Stupid shot link. It happens from time to time that you don't necessarily get everything. 3 putts is something I did want to take a look at, though. Yeah, more 3 putts here than your average tour event. Makes sense when you have like 100-foot putts. Very slow greens. When we take a look at the course length, it's wind has been very calm to moderate. We've seen a -33 winner and -27 winner the past 2 years. Sometimes when it gets super windy, like in 2020, then it gets a little bit different. There, 2018, I think Justin Thomas won at like -14. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. Like rough length doesn't really matter because players don't hit it into the rough all that often at this course. The greens tend to be very, very soft. They're Bermuda grass greens. It's an easy course. And the green speed, it was up from a year ago. It was average a year ago, Velcro in terms of how slow it played in 2022. And we've seen that pop up over time. It's been faster 2 of the past 3 years, but it's still not they're not fast greens whatsoever. So we can take a look at the Velcro putting, slow putting towards the end of the show and always in the time codes if we can try to figure out which of those players we want to go with. Tournament history. Take a look back over the years to see who has done the best. In 2023, it was a Jon Rahm winner. This was the most devastating gambling loss I had in any sport of any day all year long. Morikawa enters with a 6-stroke lead. He ends up losing by, I think, 3 strokes by the end of it. He had a 6-stroke lead, going to the back 9, and he just hit a wall. It wasn't very good. It wasn't very fun to watch. Rahm runs away with it. Obviously, Rahm doesn't play in this tournament anymore. This tournament has been very good to guys that left for LIV. Rahm won last year. He left for LIV. Cam Smith won the year before. He left for LIV. Dustin's a multi-time winner of this tournament. Patrick Reed has won this tournament over the years. So just something to keep in mind. If you have a beat on which one of these guys are going to go to LIV, maybe that's the angle that you want to take this week. But this tournament's been way better. I mean, we'll get to the field in a second, but this is the best iteration this tournament has ever seen, in my mind, at least, for me to find it somewhat intriguing. But after Rahm on the leaderboard, Morikawa came solo second. Then you have Homa and Tom Hoge. Both came in third. It was Tom Hoge's first appearance in this event. Tom Kim's first appearance in this event. He comes in a tie for fifth. Scheffler, Fitzpatrick, and Finau tied for seventh. Luke List tied for 11th. Spieth, another former winner, tied with Cam Young and Sung Jae in T13. Sung Jae's played this tournament 3 times in his career, and he has come inside the top 13 every single time. Patrick Cantlay has played it 4 times. He's come inside the top 16 every single time with 2 top 5 finishes. Morikawa has played it 4 times and never finished worse than T7. You can see Max Homa has now been here 3 times, T25, T15, T3 for maximum Homa. So maybe he's trending towards a victory. You could almost say the same. I mean, there's no way I can't bet Morikawa unless his odds are just ridiculous in terms of being how low they are. But I think that Morikawa, Homa are who I'm leaning towards for my first 2 looks in this event. But Jeff and I will talk it out on Monday, and maybe he can sell me in a different direction. First-time players in this tournament. Rory is not playing. I mean, I suppose I should go to the field right now, and we can talk through this. But Rory is out for personal reasons. He is listed in the DraftKings pricing, but he's not playing. So 10,800 is going to be a dead spot in there. I mean, you can play him if you want to, especially if you're playing against me in the Pat Mayo Experience Listeners League, where the link is down in the description. Use all the Rory you want. He will have 0 points, but I'm in that tournament too, so I want to see you with lineups with 0 points. I'm not sorry about telling you that. If you want to play Rory, just as a show of support for Rory McIlroy, you go do that. If you want to win, you don't play Rory McIlroy this week. Byung-Hun An is coming off suspension. He will play, and it looks like Seamus Power is playing as well. He's coming off a hip injury, which cost him the end of his season. But other than that, it's 59 players. It's actually pretty awesome. We had 39 players. That was the largest tournament a year ago ever in the 25 years when it was the Tournament of Champions. But now it's no longer the Tournament of Champions. It's just the Sentry Tournament. All the winners from last year are in this event, as is every player from inside the top 50 of the FedEx Cup standings. And the only player eligible who is not playing is actually Rory, who is taking the pass. This is an elevated event. There is no cut, but 59 players is a whole lot more fun than 29 or even 39 from what we saw a year ago. And like every good player who remains on the PGA Tour is going to play this week. I do want to take a look at the plantation history, the plantation course history at Kapalua before we do anything. So what I want to do is we'll call it past 12 rounds, but I want to make sure that it's not like Camilo Villegas is in the tournament, for example. I don't believe he's played in this tournament since 2015. Don't know if that's really going to tell us too much. So we're going to separate on the left-hand side of Fantasy National right now the past 4 years. So 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023. We'll say past 12 rounds, and then we'll scroll down to the courses, go to the Plantation course at Kapalua, and then take a look at averages to see if there's any players that are doing better than maybe that we think. So Xander and Fowler have actually been the best players, tied with Tom Hoge in terms of strokes gained total per round at this course over the past 4 years. Now, Ricky and Hoge have only played it 1 time. they only have 4 rounds. Xander has played it basically every single year. He has 12 rounds at that tournament, the maximum of the 12 rounds. That's how well that he is playing at the Plantation course. After him, a 0.1 of a stroke behind is Morikawa in his 12 rounds. Tom Kim and Fitzpatrick in 1 tournament apiece have played really well. Sungjae, 1.1 per round. Cam Davis in 1 is averaging a stroke per round over the field. That's better than Scotty Scheffler, who has seen 8 rounds. Cantlay is up there. Luke List is up there at 0.9. Cam Young at 0.7. Harris English at 0.6. There's a guy that legit no one is going to play at this tournament. Who did he lose to? He came second here, or did he win it? Now I can't even remember. I remember him having a great run at the tournament. Yeah, he won this in 2021. It's probably why he's back up there. Putted the lights out that year. Who the hell did he beat? Whoever he beat, I had money on. It was Neiman. Yeah, he beat Neiman in the playoff when Neiman didn't go warm up. This tournament has been heartbreaking for me over the years. Now that I really think about it, maybe I blocked all of this out of my mind and just didn't really want to think about it, but here we are. Homa's played 12 rounds. He's been one of the better players in the field in terms of stroke average per round. So has Poston, Spieth. The worst players, if we go look at it, are usually first-timers because, first-timers are usually first-time winners on the PGA Tour who are usually at a lower quality of player than your very top-end players. I mean, that's just intuitive. Or they're very young players. But we have seen very few first-time players win this tournament. I don't know if any have actually won this tournament. We did see Tom Hoagie finish top 3 last year, and Tom Kim finish top 5. That's a bit of an anomaly year over year, but now that we've expanded the field, we're probably going to see more of that. But generally speaking, first-time winners and first-time players in this event just have a very tough time with the different undulations, with the slopes, the elevation changes, that it does take a little bit of time to get acclimated. Like fading some of the first-time players, you can see them all up here. I mean, first-time players of the past 5 years. Most of these players overall, like Jason Day, isn't a first-time player at this event. But, Denny McCarthy is. Kurt Kitayama is. Nick Hardy is. And it's probably the last time that Nick Hardy is ever going to play at this tournament. Either way, it just takes a little bit of time to figure out how this course works and how to hit the slopes in the right way. Like, local knowledge does come into play a little bit. That doesn't mean that can't be overcome. It is just, if it's a tiebreaker between a guy who's never played before and a guy who has a bit of experience at this course, I would lean with the experience. If you rate them out exactly the same, I wouldn't say, I can't use this guy because he's never played before. But if I like him more than some of the other options, but all things being equal, I'd go with the experience over the first-time player. That's just what I want to do. I do want to take a look at putting for a second, though. Past 4 years, the guys that have been very good on these greens: Fitzpatrick, Burns, English, Poston, Hoagie, Cantlay, Morikawa, Scheffler, good lord. Nick Taylor in his 4, gaining 0.5 per round, so 2 overall in the tournament that he's played in. Anyone who's been especially bad? Oh, yeah. Svensson, Glover, Thigala, Henley, Keegan, Hovland. Just can't figure out these giant greens. A lot of 3 putts. He said if you're putting very, very poorly. Luke List. We'll get to Luke List in a minute. We can do the player profile on Luke List, who I will be betting this time around. Came T11 a year ago at this event. He won during the swing season and has made every single cut, basically except for the U.S. Open. And here's the very sneaky thing. You can see where he's losing 3 strokes to 5 strokes per tournament on the greens. Kind of turned it around a little bit after the U.S. Open. I believe David Barnett of the Tour Junkies told me he either got a new putter or a new putting coach. He gained 6 strokes in a tournament to win on Bermuda grass as well, and broke even with the field at the RSM, and probably did the same thing at the Butterfield Bermuda as well. But he's gained in 4 of his past 5 weighted events. That's huge. I don't need him to gain the 6 strokes. I just need his driving to be great, which is something that I'm going to weight very seriously this week, and his approach to be good, which it is. He's actually very good around the greens for the most part. You see he had this bad run, and he had a bad run overall between chipping and putting, but historically speaking, he had been one of the best around the green players on the PGA Tour. It seems like he's reverting back to that. If he can just keep his putter stable, I think he's kind of geared to win this event, and slow greens as well generally help him out. He's going to be a bet of mine. He's going to be over 100 to 1, and he's $6,200 on DraftKings down at that price. I just think that he rates out really well, despite having 4 rounds of some of the worst putting you'll ever see at this course. That's okay. It's a brand new year. let's jump off of the plantation course and go to the actual modeling of this event. Custom stat modeling, I have 95% of the weighting applied right now. As you can see, I have mixed it up a little bit from a year ago. It's actually been a very solid model for me over the years, but what I did was take away a little bit from strokes gained approach and add it on to strokes gained off the tee, just because I have a lot of approach stats baked in already. And one thing that I am going to add to that list is eagles gained, just because you can get to a lot of these in 2 in terms of the par 5s. Hell, if you have the right wind, you get some of the par 4s in 2. So I'm going to put eagles gained in here at the bottom, just to kind of throw it in. So strokes gained off the tee, 20%. Strokes gained approach, 10%. Very rarely will you see that split, but you'll see why in a second with the next stat, which is opportunities gained weighted at 25%. If you are new to both stats and fantasynational.com, fantasynational.com/Mayo for that 20% off. This is a proprietary stat that we have. It is greens in regulation and fringe in regulation or under within 20 feet of the hole. So a legitimate scoring opportunity, which is especially important at a tournament like this, where you have some of the largest greens on the PGA Tour that you need to distinguish between greens and regulation. Maybe it depends on who's putting. Me versus Jordan Spieth, who makes everything from 300 feet. But a 16-foot birdie putt is much better than a 93-foot birdie putt, which might lead to a 3-putt. Now, if you're Luke List, you might 3-putt from 17 feet, but you want those scoring opportunities. It is not the greatest stat for predicting the winner, but it is a very good stat for DraftKings scoring, because it just shows you guys are going to make birdies in bunches or potentially have great pin-seeking ability. Players like Tom Hoagie and Kurt Kitayama are always really good at opportunities gained because they fire at every single pin. It leads to quadruple bogeys. It also leads to birdie streaks at the same time, which I'm more concerned with from a DraftKings perspective versus something like an outright winner. I mean, ideally, you'd just be great at opportunities gained, make a bunch of birdies, and win a tournament. But it doesn't always work out that way when you are an aggressive player. But this is a course where you do want to be very aggressive at. Strokes gained par 5s, 5%. Par 4s, 300 to 400 yards, 10%. I pointed out why earlier that more holes fall in that bucket than maybe it seems on the scorecard. Proximity, 100 to 125 yards, so another approach stat. Wedge play. Who's very good at wedge play? Strokes gained par 4s overall. Those are the difficult ones on the course. 5%. Putting, 5 to 10 feet. Putting, 10 to 15 feet. And then eagles gained at 5%. I'm going to load in my results and see what we got a cooking this week at the Sentry. How many rounds do I have here? I do want to take I don't want 12 rounds because most of these players haven't played any weighted events in 5 months. What I want to do is zoom out and look at past 100 rounds. And I probably don't need to keep on all of the year filters anymore, so we'll just click off of that and we'll reload the model in. We tried to work on this. I mean, past 100 rounds it's a lot of rounds, but it gives you a better baseline of what players' underlying skill sets are. Now, if you want to then juxtapose that with the past 8 rounds or 12 rounds or 24 rounds to see which players are punching above their weight or below their weight versus their longer-term baseline, I think that's a very smart thing to do. And when you're a member at fantasynational.com, you can do that. So, Rory's the best player in the field, but he's not playing, so no one cares. Xander, Scheffler, Finau, Hatton, and Victor Hovland are the next 5. Hovland and Morikawa actually rate out exactly the same, tied for 6th in the modeling. The best $7,000 players, Connors, Eric Cole, and Cameron Davis, are all 7,500 and below. We saw that Cam Davis actually had a really nice result. Eric Cole, by the way, what a swing season this guy had to get himself into this tournament, even without a win. In 5 events during the swing, 2/3, a second, and a fourth, along with a very crappy T35 at the Sanderson Farms. It's been pretty excellent. He didn't even really putt well in a lot of those events. He putted very well at the RSM, but you can see, if he can just keep that putter hot, keep his off. I don't love him for this tournament because it's going to be tough for him to compete off the tee with a lot of these guys, but his wedge play is fantastic. As you can see, number 1 on tour over the past 100 rounds from 100 to 125 yards and plays these, and because of that, plays these really short par fours really, really well. So what he's doing is he's laying back and relying on his wedges a lot of the time to score on those holes and his great putting rather than being a player who really goes for the green. You can see a lot of the shorter hitters are good on these shorter holes because they know how to play it a little bit better. They don't get too aggressive. Where big hitters like Hovland or Patrick Cantlay get themselves into some trouble on some of these holes. Now, their eagle rate is probably going to be higher than a lot of them. You see Tom Kim, Spieth, Max Homa. I mean, Homa hits the ball a pretty good distance. Russell Henley, all really good on those holes. Davis Riley, where then you have someone like Cameron Young, who's also very good and can absolutely mash the ball. That's what he does well, but you don't necessarily want to be having the most aggressive players going at it. If you can find guys that correlate pretty well, like Russell Henley correlates really well, so does Eric Cole, but they are a bit pricier at 74. How much is Henley here? In 77. What you can probably do is go down to the very bottom, and you can find, like, I can't believe Patrick Rogers is in this tournament. Technically speaking, he should be really good here. He hits the ball a mile, and he's a really good putter. And sometimes he's good with his wedges. Not recently good with his wedges. He didn't really have that great of a year. He's had a nice little hot run through the swing to get himself into the next 10, I think. I don't know how the hell he got himself into this tournament, to be perfectly honest with you. No idea. He made the BMW Championship? Okay, good for him. His results, I guess he had this nice little run here. Mexico top 10, Valero top 5, and top 20 at an elevated event. I guess that was good enough. And a third in Bermuda, 10th at the RSM a year ago. I honestly have no idea how this guy is in this tournament. Maybe he's like friends with someone, and that's how he got in. Camillo is like the hottest player besides Eric Cole from the swing season. Got a win in a second. Loves island golf in general. But these are the like ball strikers that I really want to lean towards. Not the best putters in the world. Luke List, as I kind of went through, $6,200, top 5 off the tee, has been better recently, and the putting has been better recently. Although if you look back, he's a player that if we look back at past 100 rounds, he is dead last from 5 to 10 feet and 10 to 15 feet. Although once you juxtapose that with the past 12 rounds, that's not so much the case. So a decent buy low opportunity, I think, on Luke List for a course that should sit with his skill set really, really well. As long as he doesn't putt himself out of the tournament, you can make any lineup work with $6,200. Akshay Bhatia, island golf king, ball striking king. He gets the putter going on really slow surfaces really, really well. So again, someone who's 55th and 56th in the key putting splits, someone who is better on these types of surfaces versus your standard, like really fast PGA Tour, Texas, or these fast bent grass courses that you see throughout the course of the summer. This is where I would want Bhatia, where the ball striking can really take over for him. Van Rooyen's another one, just been getting a lot better. He got his win in Mexico during the swing season to get him into this event. But you can see he's like a totally different player in terms of the approach game and the off the tee game basically since mid-year or mid-season last year. The chipping still sucks, but these greens are so big, you don't chip all that often. So those would be the three I would be going at towards the bottom. I'm probably going to bet List to win. And at the top, like, you can pick your poison. Like, it's all the best players minus Rory. I like Homa. He doesn't rate out the best, but I like him. Harman, someone who can do damage here. For me, it's probably going to be Homa, and it's probably going to be Morikawa. I'm not going to decide on the top until I talk it through with Jeff, talk it through with Degenerate75 on the DraftKings pick show. I'd be more comfortable scattershotting at the top and really having some conviction down at the bottom. What I want are great drivers of the ball. Ben An coming off suspension would actually kind of fit that, but Vince Norman is someone that I would look at. Only 85 weighted rounds on the PGA Tour, so he gets hurt a little bit. Fantastic at generating eagle opportunities. So was Lee Hodges, weirdly enough. Pretty good putter, and he got his win in one of the alt events last year at the Barbasol. As you can see, the guy just absolutely dominates off the tee every single week. The approach play can be good, it can be bad, so can the chipping, so can the putting. But when we're talking about guys in the $6,000 range on DraftKings, this is what we want. And these are sort of the long shots that we want to take. Do they have one skill in particular that is elite, even in a great field? Vince Norman does. And he also won the Irish Open on the DP World Tour during the off-season as well. He almost got himself onto the Ryder Cup team. Don't forget that. This guy's had a very good year, prodigious driver of the ball. I worry that it's his first time at the course, but he's 6,500. This guy can generate eagles. He can generate birdies. This is where I would be looking 4 players we saw last year, opportunities gained from Hoagie in his 1 start ever came T3. Very good with wedges, very good with opportunities gained. It didn't matter that he was a really crappy driver of the ball. Didn't really make a difference. So let's try to find some of those players right now. So, your best players are generally the guys that hit it closest to the hole. Who are our outliers, though? Hoagie, Eric Cole, Henley, Connors, Kitayama. I'm going to bet Kitayama to win. Kitayama can be a it's funny. Just to take a look at his stats. He's either awesome or he sucks. It's very funny to look at. And he's been kind of bad basically since the Charles Schwab, which was in May. So maybe he doesn't got it going on. But historically in his career, even his wins on the DP World Tour, he's driven the ball pretty well. He drives it a ton. He just doesn't hit any fairways. That's not a problem here. But he's been very good at coastal courses, windy courses, and courses with slow greens, and even on Bermuda grass. He got his win at the Arnold Palmer, very good in gusty conditions. He does play better in harder conditions than he does in easier conditions, but you can see the opportunities gained can ratchet itself up, even in tournaments where his approach play isn't all that good because he gets so aggressive. When you miss at this course, it's not really that bad of a miss. If you can get the putter going, which again, we've seen on some of these slower Bermuda greens, at that, in the win, on coastal courses, he's just someone that I like. Again, he can absolutely flame out. I wouldn't, be like, oh my God, Kurt Kitayama's the lock play of the year. No, absolutely. He is not that, but he's very good at putting from 10 to 15 feet for one thing. The opportunities gained are off the charts. He's very good with his wedges and has a history of winning on coastal courses. Normally, I wouldn't play that sort of player on DraftKings at $7,400, but we have a pretty small field. No one's going to play him anyway. If he comes in at 80 to 1 or above in the opening market, I will bet him immediately because, as we've seen, he's won an elevated event against the best players in the world before. In a smaller field at a course, which I actually think sets up better for him, if he just gets unconscious with the putter again, he could do it again. He could come dead last too. That's why he might be a better bet than he might be a better DraftKings play, but that's where I would be going with this. Cam Davis actually looks pretty good as well. The off the tee kind of rates off the charts, but let's try to find some of these guys wedge play. So Scheffler's not great with the wedges, despite being the best approach player on earth. Just hits it close from anywhere. Hoagie, as I mentioned, Hideki, who used to play this tournament really well and was kind of sucked in his past 3 visits. Interesting to see this is where he's ratcheted it back up. His off the tee has become more accuracy based than distance based. Maybe this is a spot to go back and look at him. Who knows? Cantley's wedges have been like ass for a while. Cole, Morikawa, and Schauffele all rate out really well. You can see with Ludwig Aubert, great, almost a lot like Scheffler. Very good with opportunities gained, but not really. The closer you get to the hole, kind of the worse he gets. He's really good from like 165 away with those clubs in his hands versus some of the other guys. Finau and Henley, both great with a wedge. And that's kind of it for guys that rate up there really well in terms of both opportunities gained and the key proximity range. The other ones to look at, like Corey Connors, great on opportunities, Fowler, Hovland, Riley, Tyrrell Eaton, Chris Kirk. Cam Davis is still up there. Very good on par 5s and eagles as well. Who are the eagle dudes? Schauffele, Aubert, Vince Norman, Justin Rose. Okay, Justin Rose. Cam Davis, Lee Hodges, as I mentioned. Wyndham Clark, Hovland, Scheffler, Homa, Hoagie, Ben Ann. All right, so a few other guys. JT Poston, someone who has a pretty good history at this course as well, can kind of really put the lights out. But I think he's too expensive for my taste this week at $7,200. I would prefer that Bhatia list for $1,000 cheaper. Not even that I need the money. I just prefer those players more than JT Poston at this course in particular. Last thing I want to do is take a look at the past 24 rounds and take a look at that Velcro and easy. Yeah, we'll take a look at, where do we have here? Greens. I don't really care about the split between bent and Bermuda, although these are Bermuda. I just want to take a look at the green speed. We're going to go Velcro and average, so slower. Don't really care about the custom model. What I care about is putting. And try to see if there's any outliers amongst these players. So past 24 rounds, we can take the average per round, 5 to 10 feet. Anyone who's especially bad? Luke List, no shocker there. Glover, Camillo, just overall. And one thing we're working at, I'm going to tell you about something about Fantasy National in a second, but one thing that we're looking at are comparison charts too. Like I can do it right now. I'll put in Past 24, if you just click on the mixed condition model, we're trying to make this like more streamlined. Past 24, slow, average, putting. And I want to select the stat, strokes gained putting. I'm going to add that to my mixed condition model. Now I'm going to click off of Velcro and average for green speed and just have normal speed. So what I'm going to do is add another column to my mixed condition model and call it putting. And we'll call it last 24, normal putting. And this will just give us an opportunity to take a look at the mixed condition model. Of course, I didn't add them both in because I didn't press the right button. Dummy. Pat's a dummy. So let's try this again. So past 24 rounds. All right. All the filters are off. And we'll go with strokes gained putting. Last 24 putting normal is what I'll call it. Now I'll add it to the mixed condition model. Now I'll look at the mixed condition model and we can load in our results, and you can just kind of see, we'll go to the top of the slow and Velcro. You can see it is Tyrrell Hatton over the past 24 rounds, and he's 5th overall. So there's not really that big of a split. He's just good at putting. So is Fleetwood. So is Rowe. It's funny that all these British guys are really good on slow greens. I guess that tracks when you're historically used to playing on some of these. So maybe some Euro Tour players. We have seen an Australian and a Spaniard win the past 2 years at this course after 11 straight years of Americans winning at this course. But who has big splits? Finau has huge splits. He is 5th on slow and average greens, 59th overall, even when you include those rounds, which is normal putting, just neutral putting. So there is a big split. So maybe Finau is a really good look here. Eric Cole, better on the slower greens. Max Homa, better on the slower greens. Jason Day and Seamus Power, way better, as are Wyndham Clark. No, sorry, not Wyndham Clark. Patrick Cantlay and Patrick Rogers. Wyndham Clark actually goes the other way. Day and Power. Taylor Moore, Siwoo Kim, and Colin Morikawa also go from bad putters to slightly better than average putters in this field on slower greens from neutral greens. Now we can do this the other way to see who kind of drops the other way. Let's see, Keegan, better on faster greens, is one of the worst players on slow greens. That's insane to think about. Who else? Ludwig Aubert gets better on faster greens and slower greens. Ditto for Hovland. Ditto for Harris English, although Harris English has gained 6 strokes at this tournament and won this tournament before. So it's not 1 for 1. Oh, and he's 31st in a field of 60th. So he's basically average. This isn't a 1v1. Oh, this guy is most definitely going to suck because of this. I think it's interesting to look at when you see some of the splits to try to find some outliers that, again, it's like the course history thing or the experience thing at this course, where if this is something that you can point to in order to have a tiebreaker, not put all your emphasis on this, but use these little things as tiebreakers, that's how you want to play this out. This is what we do the research for. Other players with massive downswings, Matt Wallace and Lee Hodge. I guess not every Brit is good on the slower surfaces. Let's see. Who else here? I mean, Glover's just kind of bad either way. Wallace Hodges, Cameron Davis, and Tom Hoagie are worse, but both of those players have played well at this course in the past. So that's what the Velcro putting looks like at the Sentry, the Plantation course at Kapalua. Subscribe to and become a member at fantasynational.com/Mayo. I don't want to promise that we have a very special tool coming for people within, let's say, 4 weeks from now, maybe at the Farmers. That's the hope. But we've been working on a special tool for 2 years, and everyone's really going to like it. And I think we're going to release the beta version to members, and you're probably going to want to get your hands on this. It's just going to be an addition to fantasynational.com on top of everything that we have going on. Plus, we're redoing the site at the same time, but all of our emphasis has been on this one tool in particular. I don't want the rug pulled out from underneath me, and I don't want to say it and have it pulled out from underneath you at the same time, because I think it's going to be a very special tool that everyone is going to use industry-wide. Even casuals will probably end up using it. And we've really tried to think through what people need. And eventually it'll become like a free tool, but I think we're going to run it as a beta for all fantasynational.com members. But the tools are all still out there that you're used to using. So go to fantasynational.com/Mayo and get your 20% off any of the memberships. It's a great time to get the annual deal. To be perfectly honest with you, go January to January. Easy stuff. Whoa, almost knocked something over next to me here. The race for the Mayo Cup, the one and done, $200 to play. Go to Fantasy Golf Championships or Fan Golf Champs. Everything's down in the description.com right now. Get your entry. You screenshot that entry to me and put you in the running for another entry, this time for free, in the race for the Mayo Cup. $80,000 for first place. $200 entry. Goes from January to August. Great bang for your buck. We had those text alerts to make sure that you do not miss a week. And if you wanted to just, without getting an entry, to get into the draw for a free entry, rate, review, and turn on those auto downloads. Subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on Apple Podcast. If you're someone who listens on Apple Podcasts regularly, do me a favor and go do it on Spotify. And in the episode for this one, like, what'd you think of this episode? Say, I want a free entry or something like that. Any engagement on Spotify is good engagement for me. So please go do that at the same time. The DraftKings Listeners League is down in the description right now. I am pumped. Golf is back. If you're watching this and you made it through 40 minutes of it, I'm sure you are too. So let's go get some cash, all right? We'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!